You know that incredibly powerful device you carry around in your pocket? It's not just a marvel of engineering. It's actually the end result of a century-long quest to make unbelievable power unbelievably simple. And we're about to unlock that secret history. I mean, really think about it. We all walk around with supercomputers that would have been pure science fiction not that long ago. But the real magic isn't just that they exist, it's that we all instinctively know how to use them. How on earth did we get here? Well, for the longest time, the story of the computer and the story of the person using it were on completely separate tracks. One path was all about brute force, building bigger, faster, more powerful machines. The other was a much quieter revolution, one that was all about understanding how humans actually work. The device in your hand, that's where those two paths finally dramatically merged. So to really understand your phone, we have to go back and trace these two very different histories right from their beginnings. Our two stories start in completely different worlds. On one hand, you've got Charles Babbage's mechanical calculator from 1822, a pure, raw technical marvel. And on the other, decades later, you have something called scientific management, which was all about studying factory workers to make them more efficient. One was about machines, the other about people. And for a long, long time, they had absolutely nothing to do with each other. Let's jump ahead to the 1940s, and you can see this machine-first thinking reach its peak with the ENIAC. This thing was a 30-ton monster, a true giant brain that filled an entire room. But you couldn't just walk up and use it. Nope. It needed a whole team of specialists just to get it to do basic math. And that's what this era was all about. The age of giant brains. The focus was 100% on the machine, with almost zero thought given to the poor human who had to operate it. Back then, the whole idea of user experience was completely backwards from what we think of today. The goal wasn't to make the machine easier for the human, it was to train the human to be more efficient for the machine. The person was the one who had to adapt, not the other way around. It's kind of wild to think about. And the result was, by the time we get to 1959, computers are still these incredibly exclusive tools. They were locked away in labs, only accessible to this small priesthood of engineers who had all the specialized knowledge. For literally everyone else, they might as well have been alien technology. But then, things started to change. And they changed fast. The technology started to shrink, and this radical new idea began to bubble up. What if computers could be for everybody? And whoa, did the pace accelerate. The integrated circuit made smaller computers a reality. The floppy disk meant you could carry software around. The Apple I actually put a computer on a desk. But look at 1968, the mouse. This wasn't just about making things smaller or faster. This was about completely changing how we talk to these machines. This is the moment. This is where our two histories finally start to collide. A whole new field popped up called human-computer interaction. And for the first time, people started to seriously study the relationship between the user and the machine. They started asking, okay, how do we make this powerful tech actually usable for a normal person? And that mouse, it was the perfect symbol for this whole shift. Before, you had to speak the computer's language, typing in these abstract coded commands. The mouse introduced this idea of direct manipulation. You see a thing on the screen, you point at the thing, you click the thing. It was physical, it was intuitive, and it totally blew the doors open. Now, the personal computer was a huge leap, for sure, but it was the arrival of the internet that turned user-friendliness from a nice idea into an absolute make-or-break necessity. Because suddenly, computers weren't just for hobbyists anymore. With the World Wide Web, millions and millions of regular people started going online. And if your website was confusing, they weren't going to read a manual, they were just going to leave. Good design wasn't a luxury anymore. It was about survival. You could see this shift happening in real time. By 1994, you have Pizza Hut trying to figure out how to sell pizzas online. By 96, Hotmail is giving free email to the masses. These weren't tools for specialists. They were services for everyone. And all that commercial pressure forced designers to obsess over making things simple. This led to a huge fundamental change in how designers thought, and it's all captured in this one core idea. The user is not like me. Designers finally had to accept that they weren't building things for other engineers. They were building for their parents, their neighbors, for people who did not care how the computer worked. They just wanted to order a pizza. And that brings us pretty much up to today.
to the modern era, where our two timelines have totally and completely fused. Now the power of a computer and the design of the experience are inseparable.
And of course, the ultimate expression of this is the smartphone. When the iPhone came out in 2007, it wasn't the most powerful computer out there, not by a long shot. But the interface, it was so natural, so intuitive, that the technology itself just seemed to disappear. You weren't operating a computer, you were just touching photos and swiping through pages. It was the culmination of everything. Now, this effortless feeling, it isn't an accident. It's built on some really sophisticated ideas. We've moved way beyond just making buttons easy to click. Designers today use things like behavioral design to build habits that keep you engaged, and universal design to make sure tech is accessible for everyone. The focus is on the entire experience, from start to finish. So when you boil it all down, the entire story of the last century is about this one incredible reversal. We started by forcing people to bend and adapt to these giant, complicated machines. And we ended by designing tiny, unbelievably powerful machines that adapt to the needs and wants of people. But this leaves us with a really fascinating and maybe kind of spooky question. We spent 100 years making machines adapt to us. But now, with AI and algorithms woven into everything we do, is that dynamic starting to shift again? Is technology now subtly shaping our behavior, making us a little more predictable, a little easier for the system to understand? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this one.